In the hush of twilight, when the world falls quiet, there are whispers of a towering figure moving through the shadows. They speak of a giant with skin of emerald green and eyes burning with sorrow and fury. Some say he was born from a blast brighter than the sun, others that he holds the strength of the gods in his massive hands. Listen closely and you might hear his distant footfalls like thunder in the night. In lonely places, an anguished roar sometimes echoes, then fades into a heavy silence. Travelers share stories of a lonely man seen walking down moonlit highways, only for a monster of immense size to stand in his place when anger flashes. These stories, passed down through generations, all carry the same refrain. There once was a gentle soul cursed to become a green behemoth, doomed to walk the earth in search of peace he can hardly ever find. This is the timeless legend of Bruce Banner and the Incredible Hulk. Bruce Banner was a man of science and a man of kindness. Yet even before fate twisted his life, darkness lurked in his past. As a boy, Bruce endured a troubled childhood under an abusive father who feared the brilliance of his son. The elder Banner's rage was terrible. In a drunken fury, he even took the life of Bruce's beloved mother. Young Bruce learned to bury his fear and anger deep inside himself, hoping never to unleash the same violence. Little did he know that one day those buried emotions would return with unimaginable force. Years later, Bruce grew up to be a brilliant physicist, albeit a quiet and withdrawn one. He was hired by the U.S. Army to develop a new kind of weapon, a gamma radiation bomb, under the watchful eye of General Thaddeus "Thunderbolt" Ross. On the day of the bomb's first test, Bruce stood in the desert under a burning blue sky, double-checking his calculations. That's when he noticed a teenager, Rick Jones, had driven onto the test field on a dare. With seconds to spare, Bruce's good heart drove him to act. He sprinted into danger, shoving Rick into a protective trench. In that instant, the experimental bomb detonated. A wave of gamma radiation engulfed Bruce's body, its green energy searing every cell. He should have been killed instantly. Yet, by a miracle or a curse, Bruce Banner survived. When Bruce awoke after the blast, he felt different, but at first he appeared unscathed. Military doctors were astonished that he was alive at all. As dusk fell on the base that evening, however, something horrifying occurred. Bruce's body began to twist and enlarge against his will. His skin turned ashen gray and then a deep, mossy green. In place of the slight scientist now stood a monstrous figure nearly 8 feet tall, muscles bulging with impossible power. His mind was clouded by confusion and instinctual anger. Startled soldiers rushed to confront the creature, and one terrified private gasped, "It's a Hulk, a gigantic Hulk!" And so the name of the monster was given. That first night was chaos. The newly born Hulk, disoriented and in pain, smashed through the testing base seeking escape. General Ross's troops opened fire, their bullets pinging off the giant's thick hide. The Hulk roared in panic and fury, leaping miles in a single bound to flee into the darkness of the desert. By dawn, he had reverted to Bruce Banner, left trembling and exhausted amid the scrub and sand, with only hazy memories of destruction. Bruce realized with dread that the gamma blast had forever changed him. Whenever extreme stress or anger took hold, he transformed into the Hulk, a being of nearly unlimited strength that grew mightier the angrier it became. From that day forward, Bruce's life became a waking nightmare. By day, he remained his mild, thoughtful self, racked with guilt over the havoc his alter ego had wrought. But when anger or fear overwhelmed him, the monster within emerged. The Hulk's rampages drew the full fury of General Ross, who saw the green giant as a menace to be neutralized. Ross swore he would bring the creature down, never realizing at first that the beast he hunted was the very man who once worked under him and loved his daughter. Armed forces chased the Hulk relentlessly across barren plains and lonely valleys. Ross spent many years hunting the Hulk down, his mission becoming an obsession. Time and again, the military would corner the Hulk, only for the brute's strength to swell with anger until he broke their traps and escaped. Yet, in those early days, there were a few who stood by Bruce Banner. Rick Jones, the young man whose life Bruce saved, became one of Bruce's closest companions and confidants. He witnessed the birth of the Hulk and understood that beneath the brute's fearsome exterior was Bruce's wounded heart. Rick often intervened during Hulk's rampages, calming the giant or guiding him away from populated areas when he could. And then there was Betty Ross, General Ross's own daughter. Betty was gentle and compassionate. She had loved Bruce before his fateful transformation and refused to abandon him afterward. Where others saw a monster, Betty sensed the man inside. She would approach the Hulk without fear, speaking softly until the rage in the creature's eyes dimmed to confusion or sorrow. In those moments, the Hulk would relent and depart peacefully rather than harm Betty, as if some part of Bruce was still there, soothed by her presence. Despite the devotion of Rick and Betty, Bruce was tormented by what he had become. In secluded laboratories and during furtive nights, he toiled on potential cures for his condition. He tried experimental serums, massive doses of radiation, meditation techniques, anything to quell the beast. On one occasion, Bruce built a special gamma-ray chamber and bombarded himself with controlled radiation. For a short while, it seemed to work, and he did not transform when provoked. Hope glimmered that he might be free. But the Hulk was never truly gone. A surge of adrenaline or a nightmare in his sleep would inevitably trigger the change, and the giant would erupt anew. Each failed attempt left Bruce more despairing, convinced that the Hulk was an inseparable part of him. Not all was struggle and sorrow, however. In the course of fleeing those who pursued him, Bruce and the Hulk became entangled in extraordinary adventures. In one early incident, a cunning trickster god sought to use the Hulk as a pawn in a villainous scheme. This deceit led the Green Goliath into conflict and then uneasy alliance with a band of remarkable heroes, including a man clad in iron armor and a god of thunder. Together they battled to stop the trickster's chaos. In the aftermath of that battle, these heroes formed a team of protectors for the world, and they even invited the Hulk to join them. For a brief moment, the Hulk stood among Earth's mightiest champions as an ally, but his tenure with the group was tragically short-lived. The very qualities that made the Hulk powerful also made him difficult to trust. His volatile temper, his raw, unpredictable strength. After another frightening misunderstanding, the Hulk sensed the others' wariness of him. Hurt and angry, he chose to leave the fledgling team on his own terms rather than risk hurting his newfound comrades. Once more, the Hulk became a solitary wanderer, vanishing into the wilds, while the world wondered if the mysterious green behemoth would ever be seen again. Now Bruce Banner traveled alone, keeping off the grid and moving from town to town like a man chased by a demon, which, in a sense, he was. He would hitchhike under the hot sun, shoulders hunched under an invisible burden, always listening for the distant thrum of helicopters on his trail. When dusk fell, Bruce often slipped away to isolated places, fearful that night might bring on a transformation. The Hulk emerged frequently, sometimes by the light of the moon, other times in moments of terror or anger when Bruce lost control. And trouble seemed to find Bruce wherever he went, as if drawn to the power that lurked inside him. Over the years of wandering, the Hulk encountered other strange beings. Some became enemies, some unlikely allies. In a hidden underground lab, Bruce faced the leader, a brilliant but deformed genius whose body had been warped by gamma radiation into a towering cranium housing an evil intellect. The leader saw the Hulk as both an obstacle and a tool. He sought either to destroy the Hulk or bend the giant to his will, only to be inevitably crushed by the Hulk's brute strength or undone by his own arrogance. In a crumbling Eastern European castle, the Hulk battled Emil Blonsky, a Soviet spy who had deliberately exposed himself to a massive dose of gamma rays. Blonsky was transformed into the Abomination, a hideous, scaly giant who was even stronger than the Hulk at base level. The Abomination's soul, however, was as twisted as his body. He reveled in villainy. Time after time, Hulk and Abomination clashed in titanic duels that shook the earth beneath them. And though the Abomination often began these fights on stronger footing, the Hulk's fury would intensify with each blow he took, and with rising fury came overwhelming power. Inevitably, the Green Goliath would prevail, leaving Blonsky beaten and humbled. The Hulk's journeys also carried him into exotic and eerie corners of the globe. In the frozen forests of the Canadian North, the Hulk crossed paths with a feral wildman, a short, fierce warrior armed with unbreakable claws. This feral hero, known as Wolverine to some, challenged the Hulk in a savage battle amid the pines and snow. Claws met fists as the two tore into each other with animalistic fury, their roars echoing through the timberland. In the end, neither found a decisive victory. Instead, they earned a grudging respect for one another, recognizing that both were tortured souls struggling with inner beasts. On another occasion, deep in a cursed wood, the Hulk fought the Wendigo, a cannibalistic white-furred giant born of ancient dark magic. Their clash was like something out of a myth, two titans trading earth-shaking blows until the Hulk's strength and perseverance broke the Wendigo's curse, freeing the tormented human soul trapped within the monster. Each such encounter added a new chapter to the legend of the Hulk. Everywhere he wandered, incredible tales followed. Though shunned and feared, the Hulk was not always a bringer of mindless destruction. In remote villages, there were quiet stories of the Green Giant appearing out of nowhere to save lost children from flash floods or to fend off some other monstrous threat, only to leap away without a word. Some spoke of a Green Guardian who rescued them, even as officials dismissed these accounts as fantasies or confusion. In truth, Bruce's core of goodness often guided the Hulk's actions, even if the Hulk would never admit it. Rage might have dominated the giant, but somewhere inside that towering frame, the battered conscience of Bruce Banner tried to steer him toward protecting the innocent. Over time, a pattern became clear to a few observers. The Hulk rampages, though destructive, often ended up vanquishing threats far worse than the Hulk himself, be it thwarting the leader's latest doomsday plot, defeating alien invaders, or crushing true villains who thought the mindless Hulk an easy tool to exploit. This did not erase the fear people felt, but it laid the seeds of an idea. Perhaps the Hulk was not purely a monster, but a misunderstood defender in the guise of one. Despite his yearning for solitude, the Hulk found himself drawn into unlikely alliances when the need arose. In the shadows of the superhero community, he became a founding member of a loose-knit team called the Defenders, an odd fellowship of outsiders and anti-heroes. Alongside the Sorcerer Supreme Doctor Strange, the haunted anti-hero Ghost Rider, the mighty Atlantean Prince Namor, and even the Silver Surfer from the stars, the Hulk helped thwart cosmic menaces that none of them could have faced alone. In these battles, the Hulk's role was often pivotal. His strength held the line when all seemed lost. These comrades accepted the Hulk for who he was, and in their company, the Hulk found a measure of belonging. Their alliance was often turbulent. The Hulk's impatience and stubbornness caused friction, and he would depart in anger when arguments arose. But time and again, when Earth was in peril from unspeakable evils, the Defenders would reunite, and the Hulk, deep down, took pride in being one of them, a silent guardian who saved the world more often than the world ever knew. In the midst of constant turmoil, Bruce's personal life took unexpected turns. During one period of relative calm, Bruce was flung by a misfired experiment of a villain into a microscopic cosmic realm, the subatomic world of Kai. There he encountered a people with skin as green as the Hulk's, who, astonishingly, did not fear him at all. In fact, they welcomed the Hulk as a hero. On this strange world, Bruce trapped in the Hulk's form, met a princess named Jarella, whose kindness and bravery captured his heart. In Jarella's eyes, the Hulk was not a monster but a champion. She and her people saw the Hulk's strength as a blessing sent to save them from the terrors that plagued their land. Under the golden alien sky of Kai, the Hulk knew love and acceptance. He even became a protector and king to Jarella's people for a time. For the first time, the Hulk felt truly at peace, a peace that Bruce also cherished. Tragically, this paradise would not last. Through a cruel twist of fate, Jarella was transported with the Hulk back to Earth during a later attempt by scientists to bring Bruce home. In this unfamiliar world, Jarella proved her love in the ultimate way. She sacrificed herself to save a child during an earthquake, pushing the boy out of harm's way, only to be crushed under falling debris herself. The Hulk cradled Jarella's lifeless body and let out a wail of grief that echoed for miles. He took her back to Kai to lay her to rest among her people, each of his footfalls heavy with sorrow. Jarella's death was a bitter reminder that anyone who dared love Bruce Banner might suffer for it. The Hulk's anguished roar at losing her could be heard even in the far reaches of the universe, it is said, and Bruce retreated deeper into his loneliness to escape the pain. In time, Bruce returned fully to Earth and continued his quest to control the monster within. By now, General Ross's relentless pursuit had pushed both men to their limits. Ross grew ever more obsessed, and Bruce ever more desperate. It was then that a brilliant psychiatrist named Dr. Leonard "Doc" Sampson stepped forward with a bold plan to help Bruce. Sampson had studied the Hulk's condition extensively, even exposing himself to a controlled gamma experiment that gave him superhuman strength and turned his hair bright green, and he believed he could cure Bruce. Using an advanced procedure, Doc Sampson managed to do the unthinkable. He physically separated Bruce Banner from the Hulk. With a burst of energy in Sampson's lab, Bruce was split from his monstrous alter ego, each now a different entity. For the first time since the gamma bomb explosion, Bruce opened his eyes and felt quiet in his mind. The constant tension of holding back the Hulk was gone. Nearby, contained in a massive force field, the Hulk roared in confusion, now truly a separate being. With the beast temporarily caged, Bruce Banner experienced a precious moment of freedom. He even finally married Betty Ross, fulfilling a promise of love that had been postponed again and again by tragedy. It seemed like a happy ending was within reach at last. The man, free of the monster, joined with the woman he loved, and the monster safely isolated where it could harm no one. Alas, this miracle was fleeting. The separation of man and monster was inherently unstable. Bruce and the Hulk were two halves of a whole that were never meant to exist apart. Shortly after the wedding, both Bruce and the isolated Hulk began to suffer. Bruce grew weak and faint as his cells, long accustomed to gamma energy, faltered without it. The Hulk, confined to a lab, grew increasingly feral and inchoate, his very body beginning to destabilize at the molecular level. It became clear that Bruce and the Hulk needed each other to survive. In a race against time, Doc Sampson, with help from the android Avenger called Vision, reversed the procedure and reunited Bruce and the Hulk into one being once more. The process was agonizing. Bruce convulsed as the Hulk's essence poured back into him, but it saved both their lives. When it was over, Bruce stood alive and able to become the Hulk again. But his brief taste of a normal life had slipped through his fingers. He and Betty wept together, understanding that their fight would go on. Still, Bruce had learned something invaluable. An outright cure might be impossible. Instead of removing the Hulk completely, which nearly killed him, Bruce realized he might need to find a way to coexist with the monster. This revelation set the stage for one of the most remarkable chapters in the Banner Hulk saga. If Bruce could not rid himself of the Hulk, perhaps he could make peace with him. With support from Betty, Rick, and Doc Sampson, Bruce embarked on a journey of self-discovery and mental healing. They used hypnosis and therapy to delve into Bruce's psyche, where the Hulk's roots lay. what they found was illuminating. Bruce's mind had been fractured by trauma more than he ever knew. His childhood abuse, his guilt over harm caused by the Hulk, all these had splintered his identity. The Hulk was not one being but many, shaped by different aspects of Bruce's subconscious. In effect, Bruce suffered from dissociative identity disorder, and the Hulk's various forms were reflections of his repressed emotions. The savage green Hulk that most knew was the embodiment of Bruce's repressed childhood rage and aggression. There was also a gray-hued Hulk, a craftier, more sly persona that had surfaced on occasion, representing Bruce's repressed selfish desires and negative impulses. Understanding this, Bruce attempted an internal reconciliation. Through great effort, he managed to merge his warring personalities, Bruce, the Green Hulk, and the Grey Hulk, into a single unified identity. The result was a new incarnation, often called Professor Hulk. In this state, the Hulk's massive body remained, but it carried the brilliant mind and calm personality of Bruce Banner. Gone was the childlike fury. The Professor Hulk could speak in full sentences with Banner's intellect, retaining only a tempered version of the Hulk's pride and confidence. For a time, it seemed Bruce had finally achieved the impossible balance. As the Professor Hulk, he enjoyed a period of stability and even happiness. He could use his strength openly for good without the constant fear of losing control. He joined a secretive team of adventurers called the Pantheon, and, for a while, led them on missions to resolve global crises and aid the oppressed. With his immense power guided by a genius mind, the Hulk became a true hero on a grand scale. People who would have once fled from him now looked at the Hulk with gratitude and admiration. Bruce, within the Hulk's form, felt a swell of joy each time he saved lives without causing undue destruction. He thought perhaps he had finally tamed the beast and forged a lasting harmony. During this period, the Professor Hulk faced a haunting challenge that tested his newfound equilibrium. He encountered a villain called Maestro, who turned out to be an alternate future version of the Hulk himself, one who had gone mad with power and cruelty. In a possible future devastated by nuclear war, this Maestro had absorbed massive radiation and lived for centuries, growing even stronger and more tyrannical. He had all of the Hulk's strength and none of Bruce's compassion. Seeing Maestro was like looking into a dark mirror of what the Hulk could become if utterly consumed by anger and despair. The Professor Hulk battled Maestro in a cataclysmic showdown. Though Maestro was cunning and far more experienced, the Professor Hulk outsmarted him, ultimately sending Maestro back in time to the moment of the original Gamma Bomb's detonation, an explosion which finally killed that twisted reflection. This victory was hard-won and deeply sobering. Bruce realized that even united as Professor Hulk, the potential for great evil still existed within him. It strengthened his resolve to keep himself in check and use his power wisely. For a while, everything was as good as it could be for Bruce and the Hulk. But unfortunately, the balance Bruce had achieved would not last forever. The psychological fusion that created the Professor Hulk was tenuous. Over time, the strain of keeping all those personalities in one mind proved too much. In moments of extreme stress or anger, cracks appeared in the Professor Hulk's facade. He would unexpectedly lapse into bouts of irrational rage or crippling self-doubt. The truth was that Bruce's psyche, after a lifetime of trauma, could not be permanently cemented together by one round of therapy. Eventually, the unified persona began to fracture. The Professor Hulk, that blend of Bruce and Hulk, ultimately proved unstable, and Bruce's mind splintered once more. In one sad incident, an enraged Professor Hulk nearly lost control, and it took the intervention of his allies and a dose of additional gamma radiation to calm him. When the dust settled, Bruce found that the Professor personality had dissolved. He was left again with multiple voices in his head struggling for supremacy. The dominant Hulk that emerged was once more the familiar green behemoth, with all the anger and limited intellect that came with it. The era of peace was over. Tragedy soon compounded Bruce's troubles. In the midst of this emotional turmoil, Betty Ross Banner, Bruce's beloved wife and guiding light, became an unintended victim of the Gamma curse. The Hulk's old foe, the Abomination, covertly poisoned Betty with a concentrated dose of gamma radiation through an irradiated injury, causing her to fall deathly ill. Despite all efforts to save her, Betty succumbed to gamma radiation poisoning, dying in Bruce's arms at the hospital. Her death devastated Bruce. Betty had been his last, best anchor to humanity, the one who had loved him unconditionally through every storm. With her gone, Bruce felt more lost than ever. At her funeral, Bruce stood in the rain, numb, feeling like an empty shell. The Hulk within him internalized this anguish, growing quieter and more sullen, the calm before a potential storm of unprecedented ferocity. After Betty's death, Bruce was a shell of the man he had been. He wandered again, grieving and haunted, with the Hulk lurking ever closer to the surface as his emotional control waned. It was at Bruce's lowest ebb that some of his former allies decided to take drastic action. The smartest men in the world, leaders among the Avengers and other groups, secretly convened and concluded that the Hulk had caused too much devastation and heartbreak. Believing Bruce beyond saving from his curse, and perhaps moved by a mix of compassion and fear, they made a fateful decision. They would send the Hulk away from Earth for good. Using a pretext of an urgent mission in space, these powerful figures tricked Bruce into boarding a SHIELD spacecraft. Bruce, hollowed out by loss and weary of the constant fighting, barely resisted. Once he was aboard, the craft launched, and an automated message revealed the truth. Bruce was being exiled to a distant, uninhabited planet, one where the Hulk could never hurt anyone again. The betrayal cut Bruce deeply. In rage and panic, he transformed into the Hulk mid-flight and tried to smash the controls, but it was too late. The ship was already hurtling through hyperspace, far from Earth. Bruce Banner and the Hulk were gone. The Hulk's involuntary voyage did not go as planned. A cosmic wormhole swallowed the craft and flung it light years off course, depositing it on the violent planet Sakaar. On Sakaar, the Hulk awakened in a landscape of strife and cruelty. Almost immediately, he was captured by the forces of the Red King, Sakaar's despotic ruler, and was forced into slavery via an obedience implant. The great Hulk, once the terror of Earth, now found himself a gladiator, chained and pitted against deadly creatures for the entertainment of a bloodthirsty empire. Though initially weakened from his interstellar ordeal, the Hulk soon fought his way through the brutal arenas. With each battle victory, he won the respect of other gladiators who joined him. These companions, including a rock-like being named Korg and an insectoid named Meek, became the Hulk's war-bound, sworn brothers and sisters in combat. Together, they endured grueling trials and began to plot rebellion. The Hulk's rise on Sakaar was swift and transformative. In the great arena, he slew the planet's mightiest champions, surviving contests that none were meant to survive. The people of Sakaar took notice of the indomitable Green Warrior. Some whispered that he was the Sakaarson, a prophesied savior who would break their chains. Rallying his war-bound, Hulk led a daring insurgency. He shattered his obedience implant and toppled one of the Red King's loyal lieutenants. Battle by battle, the Hulk inspired others to join the fight. At last, in a climactic confrontation in the Imperial Palace, the Hulk defeated the Red King himself, ending his tyrannical rule. In that moment, the arena slave became a liberator. The people hailed the Hulk as a hero, and indeed their new king. They called him the Green Scar and Sakaarson, the one who had come from nothing to save them all. On Sakaar, the Hulk achieved something he had never known on Earth: contentment. He had vanquished those who sought to control him and forged unbreakable bonds of friendship. Most unexpectedly, he found love once more. The Hulk grew close to Caiera, a powerful warrior woman who had served as the Red King's lieutenant. Caiera was initially his enemy, but she came to see the honor and compassion beneath the Hulk's monstrous exterior. She saw him mourn the fallen and protect the weak during their battles. After the Red King's fall, Caiera pledged herself to the Hulk and helped him bring peace and order to Sakaar. In time, their admiration turned into love. This proud, charcoal-skinned woman became Hulk's queen, and her strength of spirit matched his own. Under their leadership, Sakaar began to heal from years of war. For the first time, the Hulk was not a fugitive or a weapon. He was a ruler, a husband, and even an expectant father, as Caiera soon carried his child. In those days, Bruce's rage subsided to a distant simmer. The Hulk, now often simply called Green King, walked among the people not as a monster, but as a savior. But just as the Hulk's scarred heart started to mend, fate dealt him a cruel hand once more. The very ship that had brought Hulk to Sakaar, the vessel of his exile, harbored a deadly secret. It had sustained damage passing through the wormhole, and its warp core was unstable. Not long after Hulk's coronation, the shuttle's core detonated in a massive explosion. The blast leveled the capital city of Sakaar in a flash of light and fire. Thousands perished in an instant, caught utterly off guard by the catastrophe. When the smoke cleared, the Hulk emerged from the rubble virtually unscathed. His mighty body can withstand almost any physical injury, only to find utter devastation around him. Tragically, among the victims was Queen Caiera herself, and with her, the unborn child they had been expecting. The sight of Caiera's lifeless form amid the ruins broke something in the Hulk's soul that had never been broken before. He kneeled in the ashes, cradling her, and for a long moment no sound escaped him, just a fathomless grief. Then came a roar more terrible and louder than any before. It was the anguished bellow of a king who had lost everything: his people, his love, his future. Sakaar, the planet that had embraced him, was in ruins, and Hulk's heart burned with fury like a star gone supernova. Believing the explosion to be a deliberate act of treachery by the heroes of Earth who built the ship, the Hulk's sorrow turned into an all-consuming wrath. In his mind, those who banished him had killed the only happiness he had ever known. He swore vengeance in Caiera's name. Gathering his warbound, those who survived the blast, the Hulk used the remaining technology of Sakaar to pilot a stone spacecraft back through the great portal towards Earth. His rage was so intense that Sakaar's orbit shifted. It was as if the planet itself shuddered at the departure of the World Breaker, for that is what the Hulk had now become. The Green Scar's eyes glowed with a terrible focus as he neared Earth. He was intent on making his betrayers pay in blood and tears. When the Hulk's makeshift craft landed back on Earth, it struck the ground like a meteor. He arrived in the heart of Manhattan, sending shockwaves through the city. The Hulk and his warbound emerged and immediately issued a demand heard across the globe. He called out the names of those who had exiled him: Iron Man, Tony Stark, Doctor Strange, Black Bolt of the Inhumans, and Mr. Fantastic, and declared that they had one chance to face him, or he would tear the city apart. Thus began the event that would come to be known in fearful memory as World War Hulk. Earth's heroes scrambled to respond. Iron Man, in his most powerful Hulkbuster armor, confronted the Hulk first. A titanic battle erupted on the streets of New York. Stark unleashed every weapon he had, leveling entire city blocks. But the Hulk only grew angrier and stronger, finally smashing Iron Man's armor into shreds. The army intervened with laser cannons and sonic disruptors. The Hulk strode through them as an elephant through tall grass. One by one, the Hulk sought out and bested those he held responsible. He invaded the sanctum of Doctor Strange, shattering mystical barriers through sheer force of will and dragging the Sorcerer Supreme out, broken and defeated. He stormed the Inhumans' hidden city on the moon, crushing Black Bolt, who was believed to be able to kill with a whisper, in brutal single combat. The world's mightiest heroes fell before the World Breaker's wrath, for none could match the power of the Hulk at the height of his rage. The Avengers, the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, all rushed to try to stop him, and all, in turn, were struck down or forced to retreat. Even Thunderbolt Ross, ever proud, mounted an all-out military assault, only to find the Hulk more powerful than any mortal army could handle. In the ruins of Madison Square Garden, the Hulk built a gladiatorial arena using debris and technology from his ship. He implanted obedience discs in the heroes he had captured, much as he himself had been forced to wear on Sakaar. He made Iron Man, Doctor Strange, and others fight one another in that arena to show the world their weakness and hypocrisy. The Hulk was reveling in a dark sense of justice served. All the while, he thundered accusations down at them. He wanted them, and the watching world, to acknowledge the pain they had caused him. And indeed, many onlookers began to sympathize with the Hulk's grievances, if not his methods. The Hulk had become like an avenging angel of wrath, meting out poetic justice. However, even in the midst of this vengeance, the Hulk did not truly desire to kill innocents. A part of Bruce's moral code still held sway deep within. Though beaten and forced to fight, none of his captive former friends were slain by his hand. It was almost as if the Hulk needed them alive to witness his triumph and feel remorse. Still, his rage pushed him closer to the brink with each passing hour, and the earth itself trembled under the specter of the Hulk's fury. Then came the revelation that shattered the cycle of hatred. One of Hulk's closest warbound, the insectoid Meek, confessed that it was he who had allowed the deadly explosion on Sakaar to happen. In truth, the shuttle's detonation had not been triggered by Earth's heroes at all. It was Meek's own actadness. Meek, driven by a fanatical belief in Sakaarian prophecy and craving the return of war, had known the warp core was critical and intentionally chose not to stop the disaster, hoping it would push the Hulk into fulfilling a destiny of glorious conflict. "I did it to make you the killer I knew you could be," Meek admitted in the arena, as all stared in horror. The Hulk was stunned. His mind raced, trying to deny it. But Meek's gaze was unwavering. In that moment, the Hulk realized the full tragedy. His greatest rage had been sparked by a friend's betrayal, not the deeds of those he hated. He had nearly become the monster he'd been portrayed as, all based on a lie. The fire in the Hulk's heart guttered, replaced by overwhelming grief and guilt. Standing amidst the ruined arena, with his erstwhile enemies at his feet and the warbound around him, the Hulk slowly lowered his head. "Enough," he rumbled. His anger, so hot it could have cracked the world, cooled, and with it, his strength ebbed. In that vulnerable moment, Earth's remaining defenders struck. Tony Stark, bruised and desperate, activated a last resort satellite weapon that bathed the Hulk in a beam of power equivalent to the might of a sun. Too drained emotionally to resist, the Hulk took the blast head-on. With a final echoing roar that shook the skyscrapers, the Hulk fell and finally allowed himself to be defeated. As he sank into unconsciousness, his massive form shrank back to the figure of Bruce Banner, curled in a deep crater. World War Hulk was over. In the aftermath, Bruce was taken into custody by S.H.I.E.L.D., placed in a specialized containment capsule to keep him sedated and monitor any sign of reawakening rage. His war-bound allies, understanding that their friend's mind had been clouded by grief, surrendered as well or slipped away into hiding. The heroes of Earth, bruised and shaken, helped rebuild the damaged cities. Tony Stark visited Bruce's capsule and spoke softly through the glass. He expressed sorrow for what had happened to Caiera and regret for sending Hulk away, acknowledging their mistake. Bruce, sedated but still conscious, simply turned away, silent tears in his eyes. It would be a long time before Bruce Banner could forgive others, or himself, for all that had transpired. While Bruce languished in captivity, his oldest foe was undergoing a shocking transformation of his own. General Thunderbolt Ross, humiliated by once again failing to destroy the Hulk and seeing the world nearly laid low, refused to let go of his obsession. Ross had lost his career over his fixation with the Hulk, lost his daughter Betty to the Hulk's world, and still he could not stand down. In secret, Ross made a fateful pact with some of the Hulk's greatest enemies. Utilizing advanced technology and stolen scientific knowledge, courtesy of the leader and MODOK, Ross deliberately subjected himself to a massive dose of gamma radiation. He became a Hulk himself, the Red Hulk, a brute with burning crimson skin and the same limitless fury as the Green Hulk. Ross kept this transformation hidden at first, operating from the shadows. As the Red Hulk, he launched a brutal campaign, targeting anyone connected to Bruce. He ambushed and murdered the Abomination in cold blood, seeing in that monster a twisted reflection of what he hated in Banner. He sought out Hulk's old allies, even clashing with the likes of Thor and other Avengers to prove his newfound superiority. For a while, the identity of the Red Hulk confounded everyone. Here was a new Hulk, cunning and merciless, who seemed to arise out of nowhere. Eventually, Bruce Banner, freed from custody to help deal with this new threat, confronted the Red Hulk. In a thunderous battle at a desert base, Green Hulk met Red Hulk. The fight was ferocious. Red Hulk had the tactical cunning of Ross and the added ability to absorb energy, making him a formidable foe. But Bruce had something Ross did not: decades of experience mastering his rage. In the crucial moment, Bruce let loose every ounce of strength in the Green Hulk, overwhelming the Red Hulk in a flurry of blows that left Ross staggered. Beaten and unable to continue his rampage, the Red Hulk reverted to Ross, his secret exposed. Shocked and defeated, Thunderbolt Ross at last understood the burden that Bruce carried. He had literally become what he hated and learned how the power came with a curse. Shamed, Ross finally let go of some of his bitterness. In time, he even tried to redeem his actions by using his Red Hulk powers for controlled good, occasionally cooperating with Bruce and the Avengers against common threats when he wasn't incarcerated. The lifelong feud between Ross and Banner had reached an ironic conclusion. Each had walked a mile in the other's shoes, in a sense, and neither emerged unscathed. Though Ross would never openly apologize, a grudging respect grew between the old soldier and the scientist he once hounded. Following the World War Hulk saga and the tumult of the Red Hulk's emergence, Bruce attempted to reclaim a semblance of a normal life. For a time, he succeeded in remaining human, suppressing the Hulk through sheer will and pharmacological aids. During this period, Bruce lent his genius to the very organizations that once pursued him, hoping to atone for the destruction caused. He struck a deal with S.H.I.E.L.D. Bruce would work on science projects to benefit humanity and even allow the Hulk to be deployed on carefully supervised missions where his strength was needed, in exchange for resources and goodwill. It was an uneasy partnership. Sending the Hulk into battle deliberately was like holding a lightning bolt by the tail, but Bruce was determined to turn his curse into something positive. And indeed, under controlled conditions, the Hulk performed heroics, stopping an alien invasion here, quelling a rogue AI there. For a brief period, the world saw a Hulk who was, if not beloved, at least accepted as a necessary force for good. But peace of mind remained elusive. Enemies who had lurked in the shadows saw Bruce's relative calm as their opportunity. One such enemy, an assassin working for a shadow cabal, managed to shoot Bruce in the head with a special bullet. The attack nearly killed Bruce, grievously injuring even his gamma-irradiated body. To save him, Tony Stark employed an experimental extremis nanotech serum to repair Bruce's brain. The procedure healed Bruce's wound, and in doing so, perhaps pushed his physiology into yet another strange evolution. When Bruce next transformed, as he inevitably did, the Hulk that emerged called himself Doc Green. This new persona had all of Bruce's intelligence, amplified by the extremis-enhanced healing of his brain, combined with the Hulk's might. In many ways, he resembled the old Professor Hulk, rational, articulate, confident. But there was a cold edge to him. Doc Green assessed the world with detached logic, and he came to a controversial conclusion. The existence of multiple gamma-powered beings was too dangerous. He believed that only he should retain this power. Thus, Doc Green undertook a campaign to eliminate or depower other Hulks and gamma mutates around the globe. One by one, he confronted individuals who had been touched by gamma rays. Some were allies, like Rick Jones, who at one point had become a blue gamma creature called A-Bomb, and Bruce's own cousin Jennifer Walters, She-Hulk. Others were former enemies or rival Hulks, like the Red Hulk, Thunderbolt Ross himself, and even the son that Bruce never knew he had, Scar, the offspring of Hulk and Caiera, who had survived Sakar's destruction and later traveled to Earth. Wielding a specially engineered cure derived from his blood, Doc Green succeeded in depowering several of these beings, restoring them to human form against their will. Those he could not cure, he fought viciously. The world watched, puzzled and alarmed, as the Hulk, now acting with cold calculation, seemingly turned on those of his own kind. In truth, some part of Bruce likely agreed with Doc Green's mission. So much tragedy had stemmed from gamma mutations that perhaps removing them was a favor, but it was a dangerous game. And in pursuing it, Doc Green began to exhibit a hubris that worried even his few friends. Eventually, the effects of the extremis serum started to wane. Doc Green felt his heightened intellect slipping away. Anticipating his own decline, he created one last antidote, this time for himself. In a final act of self-awareness, he administered a treatment that erased the Doc Green persona, effectively dumbing down the Hulk back to his more savage state and allowing Bruce's normal intellect to reassert control. When Bruce resurfaced from this episode, he was back to a familiar status quo. No extremis, no super genius Hulk persona, just a man and a monster, sharing a body and a life, forever tangled. Not long after, an event unfolded that once again pushed Bruce Banner to the edge of tragedy. But this time, the impetus came from fear of the future rather than mistakes of the past. A new Inhuman with the power of foresight, a youth named Ulysses, had a terrifying vision of the Hulk standing amid the corpses of the world's heroes. In this potential future, the Hulk had finally lost all control and become a true monster, killing those who once might have called him friend. This vision spread paranoia among the superhero community. Could it be true? Might the mild-mannered Bruce one day turn into the horror they all feared? Bruce, who had been living quietly in the country and managing to avoid transformations for an extended period, was startled when a cadre of Avengers and X-Men appeared on his doorstep. They confronted him about the vision. Bruce, who indeed had been experimenting on himself with tiny doses of gamma cure to keep the Hulk at bay, began to grow agitated under their accusations. Unbeknownst to almost everyone, Bruce had prepared a final failsafe in case he ever lost control. He had given his old friend Clint Barton, Hawkeye, a custom-made arrowhead tipped with a substance that could kill even him, and had sworn Clint to secrecy with instructions to use it if Bruce ever seemed on the verge of becoming the Hulk at his worst. As the confrontation on Bruce's farm grew more heated, Bruce's anger rose, and with it, a flicker of green appeared in his eyes. Believing he was seeing the dire prophecy begin to unfold, Hawkeye loosed his arrow. It pierced Bruce's heart, killing him almost instantly. In that surreal moment, Bruce Banner died, shock etched on his face, and crucially, he died before the Hulk could fully emerge. The heroes stood in silence and sorrow. realizing that in trying to prevent a terrible future, they had perhaps committed a terrible deed. Bruce's sudden death was a sad coda many had expected would come sooner or later. The world at large learned that the Hulk had been killed by an Avenger's arrow, and there were many mixed reactions. Grief from those who loved Bruce, relief from those who feared the Hulk, and guilt from those who wondered if there had been another way. Bruce was given a respectful burial. It seemed that finally the curtain had closed on the tragic tale of the Incredible Hulk. For some months after, there were no Hulk sightings at all. The Green Giant passed into memory and, for some, into myth. But the Hulk's story was not destined to end in a quiet grave. Dark forces were at work, drawn to the Hulk's unique nature. Within weeks of Bruce's interment, a notorious clan of ninja sorcerers called the Hand stole into the cemetery under cover of night and exhumed his body. Using their necromantic arts, they resurrected Bruce, and thus the Hulk, as a mindless weapon under their thrall. In a ghastly scene, the Hulk rose from the ground, eyes blank and skin decaying, and lashed out with feral aggression. The Hand intended to use him for evil, but Earth's heroes intervened swiftly to put the monster back to rest, appalled at the defilement of their friend's remains. In the months following, Hydra, an organization of fascist villainy, also resurrected the Hulk for their own purposes. And once more, the Hulk was halted and his body subdued. It became clear that Bruce Banner could not find peace even in death. Every time the Hulk was put down, some new threat found a way to yank him back into the world of the living as a weapon of chaos. Finally, a cosmic being known as the Challenger, playing a grand game with Earth's fate, resurrected the Hulk yet again during a contest of superhuman champions. The Hulk was used as a living chess piece in a battle of cosmic entities, a role both absurd and fitting, given how often others had tried to manipulate him. But this time, when the game ended, something unexpected happened. Bruce Banner returned to life fully and permanently. No sooner had he awakened, free of any external control, than he discovered an alarming new truth. The Hulk inside him had somehow become truly immortal. No matter how many times Bruce died, the green monster would always bring him back. Bruce remembered each forced resurrection, the Hand, Hydra, Challenger, and realized that some unseen force tied to his gamma mutation was preventing him from ever staying dead. At first, this revelation was terrifying. Bruce had always viewed the Hulk as a curse, but at least death had been an escape in his darkest moments. Now even that solace was gone. But as he grappled with this, Bruce also recognized the strange power it granted. He could not die, not permanently. If shot or injured, his human form might perish, but inevitably, often with the coming of night, the Hulk would rise again, knitting bone and restoring flesh, pulling Bruce's consciousness back from beyond. It seemed as though the Hulk simply refused to let Bruce go, bound by some supernatural link to life. This development ushered in a grim new chapter. With Bruce now effectively unkillable, the Hulk began to manifest in ways he never had before. Every night when darkness fell, if Bruce had been harmed or killed during the day, he would resurrect as the Hulk, more powerful and more vengeful than before. Whispers spread in the underworld that the Green Goliath could not be permanently destroyed, that he was now more a vengeful specter than a man. Bruce, understandably disturbed, went on the run once more to protect others from what he might do. But now, instead of avoiding transformation, he courted it under controlled conditions, trying to understand this new Hulk. This incarnation was fueled by all of Bruce's repressed anger at death, at injustice, at years of suffering. It often referred to itself as the Devil Hulk, an embodiment of wrathful protection. By day, Bruce might be himself, perhaps even appear meek, but by night, the Immortal Hulk, as some started calling this eternal version, prowled like a demon in the shadows. With the Hulk's new lease on life came new enemies as well. The news of Hulk's apparent immortality galvanized the military and intelligence communities. If they had feared the Hulk before, now he was viewed as an existential threat or an invaluable asset to capture. A shadowy government unit named Shadow Base was formed, led by a fanatical general, a former colleague of Ross's, to track down the Hulk and figure out the secret of his endless resurrection. They hounded Bruce relentlessly, deploying advanced strike teams and grotesque new bioweapons to try to put him down. In one instance, they unleashed a horrific, mutated abomination, grafting pieces of one of Hulk's old foes onto a human host to create a poisonous monstrosity. This new abomination spewed acid so powerful it melted through Hulk's flesh, and for a moment it seemed even the Immortal Hulk might be overwhelmed. But as always, the Hulk's rage, stoked by pain and the horror of what he faced, allowed him to prevail, regenerating even from being partially dissolved. The monster was beaten, and the Hulk marched on, increasingly furious at those who would use such abominations in every sense to harm him and innocents. As Bruce wrestled with external foes, he was also locked in a titanic struggle within his own soul. Now that death was off the table, Bruce had no choice but to confront the Hulks head-on. Inside the recesses of his mind, he found himself in a strange metaphysical landscape, a green door between life and death that only gamma mutates could pass through. He experienced visions of a hellish place called the Below Place, where a being of boundless malice lurked. This being, known as the One Below All, was the dark shadow of the universe's creator, and it had been subtly intertwined with gamma energy all along. Through the green door of gamma mutation, the One Below All sought entry into the mortal world. In effect, every Hulk, including Bruce, was a potential pawn or vessel for this cosmic evil. Indeed, Bruce learned that the One Below All had influenced his entire life. That gamma accident long ago had been a kind of gateway, and the traumas and anger that gave rise to the Hulk also served the purposes of this dark entity. In haunting internal conversations, the Hulk's father's voice, or rather, the psychic echo of his cruelty, taunted Bruce, telling him that all the pain was preordained, that Bruce's entire existence as Hulk was meant only to bring forth destruction. But Bruce and the many sides of the Hulk resisted this grim fate. Though shaken to his core by the revelation of the One Below All, Bruce mustered his will and, with the help of allies like Dr. Strange and the ghostly astral form of his old friend Sasquatch, confronted the One Below All in its own realm. In a surreal, apocalyptic battle, the Hulk fought the embodiment of destruction itself. The One Below All had actually possessed the corpse of Bruce's father in that green-hued hell, combining Bruce's greatest fear with unimaginable power. It was a battle not just of strength, but of spirit. The Hulk, a being of anger and power, yes, but also of stubborn defiance, refused to be a pawn. In a pivotal moment, the Hulk literally punched through the essence of the One Below All, shattering its hold on his soul and those of his gamma-affected friends. In doing so, the green door was temporarily closed. The cycle of the One Below All using gamma mutates was stopped, and Bruce Banner's metaphorical soul was freed from that insidious influence. The victory had a higher cost, including the temporary loss of Bruce's human form and a journey through metaphysical realms to return. But in the end, Bruce emerged more whole than he had been in a long time. After vanquishing this ultimate evil, Bruce and the Hulk came to a new understanding. Bruce realized that the Hulk, all the Hulks in fact, were part of him, and each had a role. The Devil Hulk persona, which had been dominant in the Immortal Hulk at night, truly saw itself as Bruce's protector against both external threats and Bruce's own self-hatred. The familiar, savage Hulk, childlike and simple, the one who just wanted to be left alone, was Bruce's innocence and anger personified. Even the sly, Joe Fix-It, Grey Hulk reappeared, contributing street smarts and sarcasm to Bruce's internal dialogue. Instead of battling for control as they once did, these facets began to cooperate, more or less, under Bruce's overall guidance. And so it is that Bruce Banner walks the earth once more, very much alive and somewhat at peace with the beast within. In the aftermath of so much turmoil, he has withdrawn from the public eye. He knows that to many he is still a monster or a ticking time bomb, so he seeks solitude where he can. The Hulk, too, prefers the quiet now. Together, they roam from place to place, a green-skinned wanderer and the gentleman inside him, helping those who cannot help themselves, righting wrongs in the shadows and slipping away before dawn. There are still sightings, of course. A mystery savior in a remote wildfire here, a gigantic silhouette seen on a ridge under the moon there. Most people no longer panic at news of the Hulk. Some even pray for him to appear in dire times. After all, he has saved the world more than once, even if those stories are less told. Bruce has accepted that he and the Hulk are two sides of one coin, forever inseparable. In his quieter moments, he remembers the loved ones he's lost. His mother, whose memory gave him strength. Jarella, who showed him acceptance. Betty, who showed him love. Caiera, who gave him a future and whose people called him a hero. Even Tony Stark and others, one-time friends who became adversaries and, in some ways, friends again. Their faces flicker in his mind like stars in the night sky, guiding him. The Hulk, for his part, often sits quietly beside a campfire deep in the wilderness, listening as Bruce murmurs old regrets and new hopes. They are an odd pair, the scientist and the supernatural brute, but they understand each other now better than ever. It is said that on especially still nights, if you listen carefully in the desert or the mountains, you might hear a distant thoom, thoom, the slow, steady footfalls of a giant, accompanied by a low, rumbling sound that could be a humming tune, or perhaps a giant quietly talking to himself. Those who have heard it say it's strangely comforting, a reminder that even in the darkness, a protector wanders, watching over those who cannot watch over themselves. Bruce Banner, the man cursed to be a monster, endures. The Hulk, the monster with a man's heart, endures. Their journey has been long and laced with sorrow, but also with unexpected joy and heroism. And it is a journey without end. So if ever you feel anger or pain insurmountable, think of Bruce in those lonely hours, standing under the stars, wrestling with his rage but never letting it consume the goodness in him. Think of the Hulk, roaring at the heavens yet ultimately choosing to save the world that has feared and shunned him. Their story is an epic without a final chapter, a timeless legend of man and monster in one. And as the legend goes on, somewhere the incredible Hulk strides through the shadows, a silent guardian, a green Goliath with a boundless heart, forever seeking a place to call home, and perhaps, at long last, a peaceful night.